Yes, I'd just like to welcome everyone to the Indigenous Wellness Training Society 60 Scoop podcast, Story of Resilience. We have Cecelia here with us today, and the 60 Scoop was a bunch of government policies that happened in 1951 to about 1984, where it led to a large number of about 20,000 Indigenous children in Canada being removed from their families and placed into non-Indigenous care. And as we're slowly finding out, this has had several repercussions in our Indigenous history. It wasn't just the residential school didn't just stop with the shutting of the residential schools. The 60 scoop, in a sense, picked up. So where they left off. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Jackson. My name's Cecilia Borson, but my birth name is Johnson Thomas. I'm from the Didi Dot Nation on Vancouver Island in BC, and I am a survivor of the 60 scoop.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're just here to share your personal experiences and impacts of the 60 scoop. So do you know what events led up to and including being scooped? Like do you, or were you told anything about like what events led up to you being in a sense scooped?
Yes. Um, from what I got from my oldest sister, oh, I keep moving my screen. What I got from my older sister is that I was taken right at birth from my mom. I was born in this right in 1960. So she told me that my mom wasn't even allowed to hold me. The Ministry of Child and Family took me right from her at that time. And I went into a foster home. I don't remember um, them too much. My first foster home, I was fortunate that I was only put in one foster home, and then the second home, that family legally adopted me at 12.
Oh yeah, nice. So you said one foster home and then you went to another one, or
Yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's
I believe I was 4 years old when I went into the other foster home, the adopting parents' home.
oh
They
cool.
were
Yeah.
actually
So
neighbors with the Borsons.
oh yeah. So yeah. So you don't have any early memories before, like yeah. I guess if you're taken right from, I don't even remember my birth.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
right.
what
Yeah.
were yeah what were your initial feelings and reactions to like I guess finding out?
Um, the only time that I did find out, I know that when I was younger, like in grade school, I knew that I was different than my family that I was being raised in, because they were non-native and I was native, of course, right? And
Mm,
I remember that um, it was hard growing up in that home because it was a Dutch community that I lived in, and I was bullied a lot and um, abused in every sense in the adopted family home. So it wasn't a good experience, but I grew through it. And um, I found out when I was 12 when they actually forced me to sign legal documents because I was able to sign my name at that time, I guess. And that's when they told me that my family, that my both my mom and dad were both passed away, which was not true, which I found out way later in life, and that I had no siblings whatsoever, but I had 12 siblings, in fact. And that my last name, my original last name, they told me it was Johnston, not Johnson. So they gave
mm.
me a false name at when I found out that I was adopted, when they legally adopted me, right?
Wow.
So it was tough. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's for this is the first time we're encountering like, you hear about it happening, right? They're changing the or telling people like in not the truth and stuff like that, or changing, falsifying documents and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I know that when I did the 60 scoop claim, the retribution money, that that the social workers actually told my adopted parents to tell me that my last name was different than what that originally was, right? And
Mm.
that they also told me that my birth mom did not want to have nothing to do with me. And according to my older sister, my mom never stopped looking for even though we were in the same town,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was hard. So I grew up thinking that my mom didn't want me, my mom and dad didn't want me, which was furthest from the truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty difficult and challenging, I would imagine. Yeah. So, like,
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah. So, first, so what adjustments did you have to make, or challenges did you face as you're growing up?
Well, that's a big question. The big challenges was racism growing up, even
Mm,
within the family that I grew up in with, right? Because um, my adopted mother always, on a daily basis, told me I was a dirty, rotten, ugly Indian, right?
mm,
So I went through that on a daily basis with the physical abuse as well, but also in the school system as well, right? I mean, I know I was treated differently than the non-native kids in the school, because when I was going to school in a small town, there was only a handful of native kids going to the Catholic school that I went to. So I met a lot of challenges there. And from what I know from my sister as well, is that my mom drank lots while she was pregnant. And I see it as because she had 12 other kids ripped from her home. So what person wouldn't want to self medicate, right? From after having that done, right? So I had a learning disability, or I have a learning disability, right?
mm.
So
Yeah.
it was a challenge, and they did in the 60's. They didn't have the special ed classes or anything, not in the Catholic school, anyways, or teacher assistants or anything. You were just labeled as special needs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
dumb or retarded. Those were the terms they used back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. So, so what impact has this had on you personally, and like especially the cultural identity? Because I know sometimes like what we've been hearing, yeah, is just people struggle with their identity or their culture or even their community connections. Like, so, what how has
Hmm.
this impacted you? Yeah.
I think for me, because my adopted mother said that to me on a daily basis, I was ashamed of being native, right? She shamed me on being native. And I recall many times that she used to try to scrub the brownness off of my skin whenever it was bath time, right? She'd just scrub really hard, trying to, you got to get this Indian out of you because you're in a Dutch community now, so you have to be like one, right? So
No.
that wasn't an identity um, theft right there, right? And cultural
Mm,
wise, because I understand Dutch, but I don't speak it, right? So they
mm,
were kind of trying to conform me to be a Dutch person. I remember there was one time when I we were doing a story on our life, and at the end I said I'm a Dutch Indian,
mm,
right?
mm,
I didn't clarify that I was just Indian. I said that I was a Dutch Indian, right?
mm, mm. Yeah.
Yeah, so the cultural part was really hard for me until maybe when I was 16. I ran into a Cree family when I ran away finally, and they kind of adopted me, and I learned the Cree culture before I even learned. Well, I don't even really know my culture where I originate from, but I know a lot of the Cree culture,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
is kind
Same
of
here.
cool.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Cree is quite widespread and diverse, I think.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those were your efforts to reconnect to Indigenous roots, is through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I
That's,
still am. To
oh,
this
yeah.
day, I still follow their culture, like the powwows and, their beadwork and stuff too, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I guess so. It seems like you faced a lot of, say, emotional, social, psychological challenges that, like, mostly after um, being. So, what? I don't know if you feel like comfortable sharing, like, what type of person was your adopted mom or your adopted dad? Like, what type of people?
I don't mind sharing that out. Like I told you before, I don't mind sharing my story. My adopted mother was the dominant one in the family. Like I said, I understand Dutch. So I
Mm,
could hear her scolding my dad. Like my dad had no, I call him dad, but her mother, right? Because she wasn't no mom to me. Um, she would scold him in Dutch, right? And she would, as soon as my dad, he was a traveling salesman in the 60s, that was quite common, right? So when he was gone, I was locked up in a little cubby hole below the stairs in the basement. So
mm,
that's where I lived most of my, from, hmm, let's say around 5 to 8. The EMDR, I was able to figure out when things really started going sideways at home with my adopted mother, right? That was heavy duty therapy that I went through, because it helped me get both sides of my brain going, right? To get
mhm,
into the depths of my childhood trauma, right? Because I guess I just suppressed it all, right?
mm,
So yeah, my mom was the dominant one, and she was the physical abuser. My dad was the one who actually told me, when after I signed the legal documents for adoption, is that he was the one who wanted to adopt me. They have their own 4 biological sons, but he wanted a daughter, and she was incapable of having any more kids. But he used to, like, see my birth mom, walk around in Port Alberni, staggering around, and he kept track of her. And then when he found out that when he didn't see her no more, walking around in town, um, he went up to the hospital, and sure enough, he found out that she gave birth to me. And he said that he went to the look at me through the nursery window on a daily basis, because I was a preemie because of my
oh,
mom's drinking, right? So I was only 3.5 pounds when I was born. So I was in an incubator for about 3 or 4 months. But he knew that he wanted me to be part of his family.
oh. Yeah, sorry I
Yeah,
disappeared there for a bit. Yeah, yeah. So was there
that's okay.
yeah. So was there at least one supportive person, like, that was there for you as you were growing up and going through the things?
Yep. My stepbrother, their biological son Tony, he was the one that protected me a lot. He knew what was going on in the house, but he was only like 6 months older than me, right? So we went to school together. He'd walk with me in the morning and after school, right? So he would, when he could, we weren't in the same classes, even though we're the same age. Um, he would protect me from the bullies when he could. And
Mm,
for home wise, he would, because he was his mom's favorite boy, because he was youngest, he would sweet talk her into letting me go out with him to go play as a kid, which wasn't often. All my toys that she had to keep a good front, right? She had to keep a good front that she bought me toys and pretty stuff for my room, but it was all locked up in a chest. I wasn't allowed to play with it, any of it.
mm,
But Tony, he would talk our mom. I know I say I call her mother, but his mom, to let me go out and play with him, and we would go. That was the only out time I was allowed out after school with him, If it wasn't, then I was downstairs in that little cubby hole.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, he was the one who actually helped me run away at 16 too. We were working in Dad's gas station in Duncan, and I
Mm,
didn't know that he was saving all his paychecks up. And one night in the summertime, he came to my room and he had this big envelope in his hand, and he goes, "Get dressed and grab some clothes." He goes, "I'm getting you out of here because." Um, his brother, my other stepbrother James, he sexually abused me from the age 4 on up to 16.
mm,
So
mm,
he Tony knew that as well. So
mm,
Tone wanted me out of the home, and he said it was the hardest thing for him to do,
mm,
but he couldn't stand by and watch it happen anymore. So he took me to the highway, gave me a envelope full of money, and he said, "Stick your thumb out and get away from this town, and don't look back and don't come back," which I never did, right?
mm. Wow. Yeah.
So that he was my supporter.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we
Yeah.
should do, stories just about individuals like them, I think.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. So what steps you said you went to a little bit of did a little bit of culture and some counsel or a lot of counseling. What steps have you taken towards healing and recovery?
Well, it wasn't that simple. I mean, I think from here on in, it is life counseling, whether it be just talking to somebody that you truly trust with what's going on for you. For me, because I was abused from childhood, right, it led me into abusive relationships as well. I mean, it was it was what I learned. It's what I knew. It's all I knew was abuse, any kind of abuse you can think of. So with that abuse came drugs, or became the alcohol came first when I disassociated myself when I was aware that I was being sexually abused by a stepbrother. So he introduced me to alcohol, so I wouldn't be able to fight back that much, right?
Mm,
So by the time I was 12 years old, I was weekend alcoholic, right?
mm,
And then when I got older, I became a full blown alcoholic, and then with that came the abusive relationships with men, right?
mm,
And like I said, that's all I knew. And then I graduated to drugs, hardcore drugs, to be honest. It was coke and heroin, and that was at the age 40 when I finally got out of the cycle. I mean, it took a lot of work to do that. I went through EMDR um, therapy, which is eye movement desensitization reprogramming, and that I was in that for to get through what I was went through with the therapy. It took me about 6 years to be comfortable with people. I'd like to have a face on conversation because I was a very quiet person before, right? I couldn't have
mm,
conversations. I always walked with my head down, right, as a person. Didn't no matter where I went until the alcohol got in me, and then I was really, that saying, courage in the bottle, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's
Same.
where. So I think 40 years old, I went into detox, right? And I did the 7 days of detoxing from the alcohol and the drugs. And then from there, I was very fortunate. I was able to get into a treatment center right after detox, but
Mm,
there were a lot of slips. I can't say that I recovered immediately. There was a lot of slips, but I kept going. I Every time I'd slip, I'd get that shameness, and I would get back on the horse and go back to my program. There was one program in Victoria that was a 4-week program, but they let me do it for a year straight. Every rotation, I was allowed to re-enroll because the counselors got to know me, right? And I told them that I said, if I can't do it again, I'm going to go back out to use, right? And
mm,
I didn't want to. And it was at the methadone clinic in Victoria.
mm,
I had two wonderful counselors there. One One was for EMDR, and the other one was for couples counseling for me and my late spouse, who
Oh,
passed away from a drug overdose in 2005.
mm,
But
oh,
it took a lot of work. Um, and even before my year of clean time was up, I was able to get my now 23-year-old grandson into my care when he was like 7 months old. They seen that I was stable enough to take care for him, right? And
nice.
he's here with me now.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's actually the next question. What's your current life like? Family, work, community?
For me right now, Jackson, it is the best life I could ever thank God for. Um, I now live in Cold Lake, Alberta. I have a husband who is he's been on the straight road for like God knows when. Um, he's a dancer, he's a powwow dancer. He was a roofer, but he got injured in a fall from roofing and it disabled him. And I have 14 grandkids,
Wow.
three of my daughters. I'm hoping to get the third one over here. Two of them are here with me. My oldest and my youngest, Tammy and Chelsea, are here in Cold Lake. And Twyla's slowly working her way this way too. And this next Monday, we're going to pick up her sons to come into my care. I
Mm,
have her daughter right now in my care, little Cece, and she's been with me for 2 years now. And I've had all 14 of my grandkids in my care at one time or another. But Cece's been the longest so far. And I think we'll probably have Twyla's three boys for quite a while too, because her road to recovery is going to be a tough one. She's been out there a while. But
yeah.
it's a good life. I got 8 horses, 4 dogs, and 2 cats. And we just, like I showed you a picture, I said we just got a brand new modular trailer home, which got
Oh,
delivered to the lot a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So life is good. I mean, it's not a bed of roses, but it's good. I'm not drinking. I'm not drugging. I'm majority of the time happy. I'm retired and I'm just enjoying my grandkids.
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have any hopes or aspirations for like either yourself or the indigenous community? Like, do you think there's hope?
Um, I think the hope, right? Like I was really excited with you when you asked me if I wanted to do this. I think educating society about what our people went through, right? I mean, it was a sad era to grow up in, but um, I know the Child and Family Services is an extension of the 60 Scoop. And that's why, for myself, I work so hard to get my grandkids out of the system, right? And my hope is that um, there will be more restorative social workers out there that work with the families instead of just ripping them out of their home, right? There is
Yeah,
solutions, yeah. Some people have issues, but if you look at the history of what happened to us, you would see that um, yeah, we make the choice to pick up the drugs and alcohol, but there are reasons why it does happen, right? Like same with the jail system. The guys probably wouldn't even do that if they were clean and sober. What they get jailed for, right? So
yeah,
I'm hoping that one of my grandkids would do. I root them on when they're going to get their education. Like there's um, two of my grandkids that have graduated now. Dakota's graduating next week actually from high school. He's completed and he wants to be a clothing designer, which is kind of cool. And I think it's going to be indigenous clothing design that he wants to um, work on, right? And my
wow.
oldest grandson, he graduated and he's an artist, a comic book artist. and he's incorporated an indigenous way of life. He did some drawings on how he grew up in the system as well and how it impacted him.
mm,
So I think education or letting people know of what has happened and how things can actually, if we want it, we can change it. Like be more proactive within the fostering system than just sitting back and watching it happen, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
that,
like my husband Russell, he worked at Circle Five in Surrey, and he was an elder there, and he would go and support the families at the family court system, and he would pray for them. Like he's big on prayer, right? So
mm,
he did a lot of that while he was there, and he would teach teachings like how to smudge, how to pray, right, and talk about sweats and actually bring them out. Like we were gonna, as a family, take take kids out for powwows because a lot of kids don't know about them, the ones that are in foster care, right, or have experienced it, or sweats alone, right.
yeah, yeah,
Got to keep the culture alive is what I'm trying to say,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, is there anything that you wanted to share to let the people know about anything about the 60 scoop? I guess.
um I've What I know about the 60 scoop from my own experience is that it was a hard, but it made me the person that I am today. I can say that, right? Even though I went through drugs and alcohol um, struggles in my life, the majority of my life, but it made me realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel if you want it, and I tell my kids that very often. I said, it doesn't always have to be that way. I said, there's a light at the end. You just got to strive towards it. Right. And with the 60 scoop, I didn't think I would be able to have a conversation, let alone, you know, I'm, I'm proud of who I am today, and I'm proud to be Native. I may not know the Nujachanglet culture way of life. I know that my dad was one of the last of the whalers in um, Dida, and my mom was a weaver and a beater, which I found out that the lady that I was named after, my great grandmother, was also a beater as well. That's some of the bit of culture that I've heard learned from them, and that their food was seafoods, right?
Mm,
But I'm out here in the prairie, so I eat a lot of game food, so it's kind of cool, right? But I do miss the crabs. I miss crab and fish that we don't get out there in the West Coast, right? But yeah, um, I think with kids that are in care, like when I was living in uh, Surrey, I did get invited to different child services offices and share to the kids that were aging out what it was like to grow up in a foster home, and that I did relate to them, and I wish I wished and prayed for them to have a good home. But you can redefine yourself to who you want to be, not for what you were conformed to be, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, this has been very informative. Just being born, like, you hear about the stories, but it's different actually meeting somebody, I think, where so you're basically born and your mom not even allowed to touch you, and then, like, you're being told those different stories that
Right?
yeah, yeah, they're gone and stuff, and you're told
Yeah.
their wrong last name and things, and but you had these supportive individuals, even though
Yeah.
that grew up in an abusive environment. And then some people, yeah, they do kind of like question, like, why would somebody start drinking? Like, they don't even understand why individuals start so young and things like that, I think. But I don't know, all they have to do is like listen to the stories, and they'll start to understand, I think.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a friend whose his personality is pretty similar to yours here in Cold Lake, Jackson. He's really kind person like you, right? I mean, I really honor our friendship, Jackson. So I really thank you for inviting me for this interview. But I worked with him at the John Howard Society here in Cold Lake, and he has the same passion as you do, right?
Mm.
And when him and I see the homeless here, I mean, yeah, Cold Lake's a very small town, but my heart still goes out to those homeless people because I don't know their story. And I see so many people and hear people talking about the homeless here in Cold Lake, but I put on Cold Lake question and answers. Uh, when somebody makes a comment about a homeless, I said, "Don't please don't judge them. You don't know their story. Like I'll speak up for them. Like they're like have no voice in the community, right? Like they're invisible, just like Hastings, right?
Yeah.
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 So yeah,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
could, I'd open my own shelter. If I could, if I had
Mhm.
the money, I would open my own shelter out here. Right?
Yeah. 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 I just like to thank you for your courage and openness. And I know I was like supporting a friend in the um, emergency ward there last night, and I saw some elders, and yeah, you're true. It's true. Like
Mm,
remember what he said. He said we need to support our elders, and so
uh,
hearing it, and like that's when you're working
right?
downtown, right? Yeah, yeah. And then actually, because I was thinking of that even last night, like Mm, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so be able to watch us later on YouTube here. It'll be
Okay.
available, and yeah, this has been very good, and yeah, it's
Can
really
can
obvious.
thank you. Can I just share something else quickly?
Sure.
Um, Remember I told you that I ran away at 16. Well, I ended up in Vancouver, right? And I was a party animal down on Hastings Street from 16 years of age. And then after I got into recovery, I kind of did a full circle. I started working. Well, you know that I worked down on Hastings area there. So I did my
Yeah.
full circle, right? I mean, I had passion for the people that were struggling with addiction and mental health. So that's
Yeah.
where I ended up going was doing what I needed growing up, right, with my addiction. I didn't get the same kind of support that these ladies do in the supportive housing,
Mm.
but I had good support as well, right?
Yeah. I think those are the most
So
effective
yeah,
work.
that was part of my healing too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that yeah, that people
Yeah.
yeah they make the most effective workers. Myself. Yeah.
Right?
Um. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Glad that yeah. Yeah. It's obvious to me that yeah you've done a lot of work and healing on yourself, and I hope that you continue
Oh yeah.
attending the things or keep introducing your grandkids to the culture and stuff like that, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm.
We're gonna powwow all summer.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, the
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
trail. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I guess if it's okay, I'll end it here then.
Sure.
Okay,
Thanks,
awesome.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.